Javon Austo, the OG child basketball prodigy. Before Mikey Williams, before even Julian Newman, there was Javon. Back in the early 2010s, he was the viral basketball sensation, at a time when that wasn't even a thing. At just 11 years old, Javon was dropping training videos that went mega viral on YouTube. Not for dunking, not for highlight reel plays, but for blazing fast footwork, elite agility, and ball handling that looked straight out of an NBA training camp. Titles like the fastest 6th grader in the country racked up millions of views. He wasn't just a kid who could hoop, he was a walking YouTube algorithm. And long before Ball is Life, Overtime, or Slam were pumping out content 24/7, Javon was the content. But here's the truth, Javon was trained to impress, not to progress. He wasn't playing elite competition, he wasn't leading powerhouse programs, he was grinding, sure, but not necessarily growing. He had a solid high school career in Seattle and went on to play D1 ball at LIU. He even averaged double digits as a freshman, impressive by most standards. But the hype had already passed him. After transferring schools and failing to gain traction, the pro path fizzled. He played in a few semi-pro and international circuits, but never got close to the NBA. No summer league invites, no G League buzz, no real shot. Because when the hype fades, the fundamentals matter. And while Javon had talent and speed, he never fully evolved as a complete player. He was a pioneer, no question. But he was also the first warning that going viral early doesn't mean you're going far. Javon Austo is still out there training, still sharing clips, still doing what he loves. But in basketball history, he'll always be remembered as the original, the OG child prodigy who sparked an era, but never survived it. Jordan McCabe. Back in middle school, he was a YouTube legend. He was doing spin dribbles, sham gods, and behind-the-back passes with a Harlem Globetrotter flair in actual games. Stephen Curry once shouted him out. He did a halftime dribbling show at a Bucks game as a 12-year-old. He wasn't just a prodigy, he was a show. And by the time he hit high school, the mixtapes were everywhere. Ball is Life, Hoop Mixtape, Courtside Films. He was averaging big numbers, winning Mr. Basketball in Wisconsin, and racking up millions of views in the process. And to his credit, Jordan could really pass. His court vision and handle were legit, and he eventually earned a scholarship to West Virginia, a high major D1 program. Big stage, big expectations. This was supposed to be where the YouTube prodigy became a real point guard. But reality hit hard. McCabe struggled from the jump. His flashy style didn't translate to Bob Huggins' gritty, defensive-minded system. He couldn't create separation like he used to. His shot selection was questionable. His efficiency was brutal. Turnovers became a problem. Playing time got inconsistent. By year 3, he was barely in the rotation. He transferred to UNLV to try and revive his career and had some decent stretches, but the NBA wasn't calling. No summer league, no overseas buzz. The kid who once looked like the next Steve Nash online never even sniffed the league. Because that's the thing, Jordan McCabe wasn't a fraud, he was a victim of expectations. He had skill, he had charisma, but once the physical playing field leveled out and the highlight tape stopped rolling, the holes in his game became obvious. He wasn't explosive, he wasn't efficient, and when you're a 6-foot guard without elite athleticism or shooting consistency, the margin for error is microscopic. Jordan McCabe wasn't just a cautionary tale, he was one of the first, the original viral mixtape magician who never evolved beyond the screen. He didn't flop because he didn't love the game, he flopped because the game stopped loving what made him famous. Trayvon Duval. Before Cade, before Scoot, before the G League was a real option, there was Trayvon Duval. In the mid-2010s, he was the most electrifying point guard in high school basketball, a 6'2 blur with bounce, swagger, and an elite handle. His mixtapes were everywhere. He wasn't just dunking, he was destroying defenders. Split screens, windmill dunks in traffic, full court dimes. He played with a mean streak. He had the look of an NBA star. And everyone thought that he'd be one. At one point, he was the #1 ranked point guard in the country, ahead of guys like Colin Sexton, Trae Young, and SGA. And he wasn't just hyped, he produced at every level. He dominated on the AAU circuit, played for powerhouse schools like St. Benedict's and IMG Academy. And when he committed to Duke, it felt like the perfect launch pad. But the version of Duval that showed up in college wasn't the same one from the mixtapes. At Duke, he started from day one. But his game never clicked. The athleticism was there, sure. The burst was undeniable, but the jumper was broken. The turnovers were frequent. And in a backcourt with Grayson Allen and Gary Trent Jr., Duval often looked lost. He averaged just 10 points and 5 assists on poor efficiency, and by the end of the year, his draft stock had collapsed. He declared anyway and went undrafted, but he wasn't completely off the radar. He got a summer league run with the Houston Rockets and signed a 2-way deal with the Milwaukee Bucks. He notched 3 career NBA games, but clearly never carved out a real role. Then came the G League journey. Wisconsin Herd, Rio Grande Valley Vipers, Iowa Wolves, Grand Rapids Gold. Flashes here and there, but never enough to earn a call-up. Eventually, he took his game overseas, playing in Canada, the Dominican Republic, Turkey, and most recently Azerbaijan. Still hooping, still trying, but far removed from the top prospect he once was. And that's the thing with Trayvon Duval. The tools were real, the talent was legit, but the development stalled. He never became a reliable shooter, never became a true floor general. And in today's NBA, a 6'2 guard without a jumper or defensive discipline has nowhere to hide. Duval wasn't a fraud, he was a victim of early stardom. The game kept evolving. He didn't. He was a phenom who never leveled up. And in the end, Trayvon Duval became a name from a mixtape, not a name on an NBA roster. Zion Harmon. At one point, Zion Harmon was the name in youth basketball. He was playing varsity as a 7th grader in Kentucky, and not just holding his own, but dominating. He led his high school to a state title as a middle schooler, dropped 30-point games on seniors, was ranked the #1 player in his class by multiple outlets before he could even drive. By the time he was 14, he had national offers, viral mixtapes, and a reputation as the next elite scoring guard. And just like Mikey and Julian after him, the internet crowned him early. Zion was a certified prodigy. Tight handle, quick release, crafty off the bounce. He had a mature game for someone so young, and his feel for scoring was beyond his years. He transferred schools multiple times, but kept producing. At Marshall County, he was a walking bucket. He led the state in scoring. He was on Slam, Ball is Life, ESPN. He even got invited to Team USA camps and played in the Jordan Brand Classic. Everything pointed to stardom. But somewhere between high school legend and college prospect, things unraveled. Zion committed to Western Kentucky, not a blue blood, but still a platform to shine. And then, silence. He missed his entire freshman season due to what the program called personal reasons. No footage, no updates, no official explanation. The hype faded, the scouts moved on, and Zion, who was once a top 10 player in the nation, completely vanished from the national spotlight. When he finally returned to the court, he was a shell of the player people remembered. The explosiveness was gone, the rhythm wasn't there. He transferred to Bethune-Cookman, a low D1 school in the SWAC conference, and surprisingly, he showed flashes. He averaged double digits, looked more confident, tried to restart the story. But the buzz was long gone. But he had one more move in store: Seton Hall. A jump back to the high major level, another chance to prove he still belonged. But he would only ever appear in 3 games, and just like that, the spotlight flickered again. And that's the thing with the Zion Harmon story. The early hype was real, the game was there, but for whatever reason, whether it was personal struggles, development issues, or just burnout from years of being the guy, he never made the leap. Zion wasn't a fraud, he was a prodigy. But in the modern era, being a prodigy comes with pressure, cameras, comparisons, and expectations. And not every 14-year-old phenom survives that. Zion Harmon was once ranked above guys who are now in the NBA, but in the end, he became a reminder. Early success doesn't guarantee longevity. And in basketball, hype gets you in the door, but development is what keeps you in the room. Noah FARACAN. If you were on Hoop Mixtape or Overtime in the late 2010s, you knew exactly who he was. The hair, the speed, the swagger, the bounce. Noah FARACAN wasn't just another guard, he was a walking highlight. A 6'1" blur with a deep bag and a serious chip on his shoulder. He'd pull from deep, talk trash mid-possession, and then punch a two-handed dunk in traffic like he was 6'5". And the confidence? Off the charts. He didn't just play with swagger, he lived it. Fans called him the East Coast Ja Morant. He had the Jelly Fam flair, the step-back jumper, the handles that left defenders sliding out of frame. And in an era where mixtape culture was the culture, Noah FARACAN was the moment. He bounced around high schools from St. Benedict's to IMG Academy, but kept showing out. He was ranked top 75 in his class and had high major offers on the table. And when he committed to East Carolina, it felt like a solid next step. But that's where things started to fade. He barely played as a freshman. He transferred to Eastern Michigan, a smaller program where he finally put up numbers. He averaged 16 a game in the second of his 2 seasons there, but the efficiency still shaky, the decision-making questionable. Still, there was enough promise for him to take another step up, this time to West Virginia. The stage got bigger, but the role didn't. He struggled to carve out minutes under Bob Huggins, and the spark that once made him a mixtape legend just never clicked in the system. With one final shot to revive his college career, FARACAN transferred to Hampton, and while he showed flashes of scoring and athleticism, the same concerns lingered. The jumper still hadn't developed. The reads were still raw. But Noah didn't fold. He kept working, kept hooping, kept chasing it. And now, he just earned a spot on the San Antonio Spurs G League roster. It's not the NBA, not yet, but it's a real shot, a real locker room, a real system, a real opportunity. He's no longer riding mixtape fame. He's fighting for a role, fighting to show he's more than flair, because Noah was never a fraud, he had the juice. But like so many before him, he leaned too hard on flash over foundation, didn't grow the jumper, didn't sharpen the reads, and when the mixtape stopped, the flaws got loud. Now, he's got a chance to rewrite the story, not as a viral phenom, but as a real hooper earning his way back. This time, the cameras aren't guaranteed, but the opportunity is. Cassius Stanley. At one point, Cassius Stanley was being called the most athletic high school player in the country. A 6'5" guard with a 44-inch vertical and a dunk package that made him look like he was shot out of a cannon. Ball Is Life couldn't get enough of him. Slam called him a freak of nature. And when his mixtapes dropped, the internet stopped. Windmills in traffic, East Bays in warm-ups, 1 foot, 2 foot, it did not matter. He was a human highlight reel. He played at Sierra Canyon alongside other big names, but Cassius stood out for sheer explosiveness. He wasn't just jumping out of the gym, he was floating. And the hype wasn't just dunks. He had a decent handle, a smooth jumper, and enough flashes of scoring that people saw serious potential. Duke offered. He committed, and fans thought they were getting the next big two-way guard. But that's when the story shifted. At Duke, Cassius started right away. He had moments, highlight dunks, transition flashes, but the impact wasn't consistent. He averaged 12.6 points on decent shooting splits, but he didn't stand out next to guys like Trey Jones or Vernon Carey. He wasn't a great playmaker, didn't create much off the dribble, and defensively he had the tools, but not the discipline. He declared for the draft after just 1 year, betting on his potential. Cassius fell to the second round, drafted 54th overall by the Pacers. He signed a two-way deal and spent most of his rookie season in the G League. He bounced around with the Pacers and the Pistons, but only played in 33 total NBA games across 2 seasons and was best remembered for a random appearance in the 2021 dunk contest because he was only known for his bounce. He last played in an NBA game in 2022, and he's only had a few G League and overseas stints in Israel and France in the past 3 years. And that's the thing with Cassius Stanley. The athleticism was real. The mixtapes weren't lies, but the skill never fully caught up. He wasn't a knockdown shooter, wasn't a reliable ball handler. And in the NBA, freak bounce doesn't mean much if you can't carve out a role. JAYLEN LECHU. At 16 years old, JAYLEN LECHU was nicknamed Baby Westbrook. He had a 44-inch vertical, freakish explosion off the bounce, and a game built for highlights. He wasn't just dunking in traffic, he was levitating. Euro steps into windmills, putbacks over bigs, poster dunks with anger. He played like someone with a personal vendetta against the rim. The mixtapes were electric, and the hype off the charts. He transferred to Brewster Academy, one of the top prep programs in the country, and held his own among D1 bound talent. LeChu wasn't just an athlete. He had some wiggle, could handle the ball, hit tough shots. He was ranked a top 40 player in the 2019 class, had offers from Tennessee, NC State, and others. But then came the twist. JAYLEN LECHU reclassified and declared for the NBA draft straight out of high school without ever playing a minute of college ball. And just like that, the pressure got real. Scouts were intrigued by the raw talent, but concerned by the polish. Could he shoot? Could he run a team? Was he just a dunk contest guy or a real point guard? In the 2019 NBA draft, LeChu went undrafted. The Suns signed him as a raw prospect, and he became a summer league storyline. The athleticism was jaw-dropping, but the decision-making, the jump shot, the poise, still very much a work in progress. He managed to play in 9 NBA games in his career, but spent most of his time bouncing between benches and the G League, with the Northern Arizona Suns and later the Indiana Mad Ants. He had the occasional flashes, fast break highlights, but never a full breakthrough. He was too raw, too inconsistent, and in a league full of guards who can shoot, think, and defend, vertical alone wasn't enough. JAYLEN LECHU had the tools, but the development curve never caught up to the athleticism. He was supposed to be the next viral to pro success story, a symbol of how raw talent could bypass college and thrive. But instead, he became another case of too soon, too fast. He's still playing, still chasing, still dunking on your timeline, but JAYLEN LECHU is no longer the chosen one. He's the reminder. Just because you can fly doesn't mean you're ready for the league. JAYLEN Hands. JAYLEN Hands was a human highlight reel with a jump shot and a vertical that could touch the clouds. A 6'3" guard from San Diego with insane bounce, elite speed, and a smooth handle. He became a social media star before he ever stepped on a college court. His mixtapes went viral on Ball Is Life and Overtime, showcasing his windmill dunks, deep pull-ups, and cocky swagger. He had the flair of a street baller, the polish of a 5-star recruit, and the hops of an NBA slam dunk champ. In high school, he transferred to powerhouse Foothills Christian and dominated. He was ranked as a top 30 player in his class, won a dunk contest with a 360 between the legs jam, and committed to UCLA, a perfect spotlight school for a player made for the camera. But the version of JAYLEN Hands that showed up in Westwood never quite matched the mixtapes. As a freshman, he struggled with consistency. His jumper came and went. His decision-making as a point guard was shaky. By his sophomore year, he looked more comfortable, averaging 14 points and 6 assists, but still didn't convince scouts he was a sure thing. He declared for the 2019 NBA draft and fell late second round, pick 56 to the Clippers, but he never played a game for them and ultimately never got to play a game in the NBA. He was traded to the Nets, stashed in the G League, and quietly faded from the conversation. Over the next few years, he bounced around. The Long Island Nets, overseas stops in Serbia, Germany, Belgium, and Turkey. The athleticism never went away. The mixtape moments still showed up in flashes, but the playmaking, the efficiency, the defensive focus, all still incomplete. Jaylen Hands wasn't a bust, he was a reminder that viral dunks and deep threes are just the beginning, and that the NBA doesn't reward flash without function. He had the gifts, he had the brand, but the game never leveled up. Jaylen Hands was built for the spotlight, but never built for the league. A former 5-star who never stuck, and a viral star who never evolved beyond the views. Sebastian Telfair. Before Steph, before Dame, before high school point guards were skipping college and jumping straight to the league, there was Sebastian Telfair. A 6-foot guard from Brooklyn with legendary street ball roots and a bloodline that included cousin Stephon Marbury. Telfair was the guy. He dominated NYC hoops like a king, won 3 city championships, scored over 2,700 points. He had the whole Mecca buzzing. He graced the cover of Slam magazine as a teenager, had a sneaker deal with Adidas before his senior prom, and when LeBron left high school in 2003, the spotlight shifted to Telfair. Small guard, big stage, even bigger expectations. He was supposed to change the game for undersized guards, not just make the league, own it. The Blazers took him 13th overall in the 2004 NBA draft. And for a second, the dream looked real, but the NBA hit harder than expected. Telfair struggled from the jump. He had speed, he had flash, but the jumper wasn't consistent. The turnovers piled up. The defense, barely there. He bounced from team to team, Portland, Boston, Minnesota, the Clippers, back to Minnesota, then Cleveland, Phoenix, Toronto. 10 teams in 10 years. Each one hoping they could unlock the high school phenom, each one eventually moving on. He had moments, solid stretches off the bench, a few clutch performances, but never more than a role player. And over time, his minutes faded, the buzz vanished, the label flipped from future star to NBA journeyman, and then came the off-court spiral. In 2007, he was arrested on gun charges. In 2019, again, this time sentenced to prison. The career was already over. Now the legacy was crumbling too. That's the tragedy of Sebastian Telfair's story. He wasn't a bust because he lacked talent. He wasn't a fraud. He was a victim of expectation. Crowned before he ever stepped foot on an NBA court, then chewed up by the same system that crowned him. Telfair had the handles, the heart, the hype, but the modern game evolved without him. And instead of rewriting the script for small guards, he became a cautionary tale. He made the league, but he never made his league. Sebastian Telfair wasn't just a point guard, he was a warning that the jump from high school to the NBA doesn't just require talent, it requires time, guidance, and a game that grows. DIOR Johnson. Back in 8th and 9th grade, DIOR Johnson wasn't just a top prospect. He was a national obsession. He had the handle of Kyrie, the scoring instincts of a seasoned pro, and the kind of swagger that made gym crowds erupt. By 14, he was going viral for snapping ankles and dropping 30 on varsity players. And by 15, he was ranked top 10 in the country, a 5-star prospect already drawing comparisons to NBA guards. He played for 9 different high schools in 5 states, and no matter where he landed, the cameras followed. Slam, Ball is Life, Overtime. DIOR was built for the algorithm, and the algorithm loved him. He committed to Syracuse, then decommitted, eventually chose Oregon, but before he could play a single minute, everything unraveled. In 2022, DIOR was arrested on felony assault charges. Oregon dropped him. He transferred to Pitt, but never played. the once top recruit was now completely off the radar. But in 2023-24, DIOR mounted a comeback. He enrolled at Clarendon College, a JUCO in Texas, and went off. He averaged over 30 points per game, dominated every single night, and reminded people why he was once a 5-star. That led to a return to Division I basketball, transferring to UCF to pair up with Mikey Williams during the 24-25 season. But against real competition again, the cracks reappeared. The minutes and numbers dipped, the efficiency wasn't there, the defense was shaky, and the draft stock still nowhere to be found. As of 2025, DIOR Johnson is 21 years old, still supremely talented, still chasing it, but after 9 high schools, multiple transfers, a felony case, a JUCO detour, and a D1 comeback, he's no longer the next big thing, just a name we remember from the mixtapes. DIOR Johnson had the hype, the bag, and the spotlight. But in the end, he's a reminder that potential is a window, and if you don't grow into it, it closes fast. Javon QUINNLY. But you for sure remember him as Jelly JQ, one of the OG guys of Jelly Fam. Back in high school, QUINNLY helped turn finger roll layups into a national movement. He was the co-founder of Jelly Fam, a social media phenomenon that turned acrobatic finishes into a brand. He was slick, skilled, and confident. A 5-star point guard out of New Jersey who committed to Villanova as a McDonald's All-American. But the dream started unraveling quickly. At Villanova, he barely played. Frustrated, he posted, "Was my second choice for a reason" on Instagram and transferred. He would eventually transfer to Bama after his freshman year at Nova and had to sit out the 2019-2020 season due to transfer rules. But once he made his debut at Bama in November of 2020, things improved. He had some big SEC moments, NCAA tournament runs, clutch games, and decent production. But for all the flair, he never became a consistent floor general or elite shooter. Then came yet another move, to Memphis for his 6th year of college ball in 23-24, and by that point, the NBA had moved on. JQ had a solid college career, but not a pro-ready one. As of today, there are no signs that his basketball journey is still ongoing. Overall, Jelly JQ wasn't a total bust. He was a trendsetter, a culture changer, a name that will always matter in hoop circles. But while the Jelly Fam brand took off, his game plateaued. He was flash without consistency, handles without a jumper, and in the end, the brand outlasted the basketball. JQ helped change the game, just not the way he was supposed to. The game doesn't care about views. It doesn't care how many mixtapes you dropped, how many followers you had at 15, or what nickname the internet gave you. Austo and Jordan McCabe were early internet stars. Trayvon Duval, Zion Harmon, and Noah FARACAN were built for the spotlight. Stanley, JAYLEN LECHU, and Jalen Hands had scouts drooling, and SEBASTIAN had a city behind him. But in the end, hype without growth just creates pressure, and pressure without preparation, that's a recipe for collapse. Some got overwhelmed, some got overlooked, some just stopped getting better. Because getting noticed is easy in today's world. Anyone can go viral. But turning viral moments into a real basketball career, that's rare. It takes more than talent, more than bounce, more than 1 million views. It takes discipline, development, and time. If you're into stories that go deeper than the highlight reel, hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. We've got plenty more where this came from. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you in the next one.